everyone and welcome to another Poppy Playtime Theory video, and today we're talking about something a little interesting that isn't quite in the games. Rather, this is a bit of a golden goodness. It's actually on the Mob Games Twitter page. Over Easter, Mob Games released a few images depicting Bunzo's journey through the factory. And this is what we're going to be talking about in today's video, and I'm going to give you my thoughts and theories along the way, and also kind of explain some of the images if it needs explaining. So this video is going to contain spoilers for both Poppy Playtime Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, and also Project Playtime. But more importantly, if you want to discover these comics for yourself, now's the time to do so. Now, with that being said, if you do enjoy Poppy Playtime content, then make sure you hit subscribe, because we do enjoy talking about Poppy Playtime theories on the channel, and with the release of Chapter 3 around the corner, I'm going to be covering it a lot. Anyway, shameless self-promotion out of the way, spoilers included, let's get into this video. So in the first comic strip, we see Bunzo Bunny in what looks to be the hallway with the infamous door to hell. From the perspective of the comic, it looks like Bunzo is speaking to the reader, saying the following: "Howdy friend, the name's Bunzo Bunny. I'm on an egg hunt and I need your help to find the secret eggs. I think one of my pals might have a clue. Who should I ask?" Interestingly, each of these corridors lead to another character, PJ, Bron, and Boxy. On Twitter, Mob Games gave us the chance to select Bunzo's response, and as a result of this, Bunzo speaks to Bron. Also, side note, can we appreciate how cute Bucky is? In the next panel, or the next comic strip, we see the result of the Twitter poll, as Bunzo says, "I'll ask Bron. He's so tall, he can probably see all the hiding spots." I do find this phrasing a little interesting, almost as if it's trying to hint at how Bron could be used in future games, perhaps even a type of hide and seek in Playcare for Chapter 3. Like I said before, I do believe that these comics are supposed to reveal something a little more to us rather than just a fun adventure, but I digress. In the next panel, Bunzo walks up to Bron and says, "Howdy Bron, have you seen any secret eggs? Bucky and I are on a hunt." To which Bron cheerfully replies, "Hi Bunzo, that sounds like fun. I think I saw one hidden on the catwalks in the game station." Bunzo looks at Bucky and says, "Did you hear that, Bucky? Let's go." While this interaction is short, it looks like Bron is living up to his happy character vibe, which isn't what I was actually expecting, but there is something interesting here that, again, I will talk about at the end of the video. Later on in the story, Bunzo is seen making his way to the game station, where he comes across a half-open, boarded-up shutter door, which looks to be the perfect place for Experiment 1006 to be hiding out. This is actually quite interesting because in the comic strip, there seems to be a green-like fluid or puddle that's been drawn onto the floor leading inside the shutter. But nothing is said about it. Bunzo mentions that he can smell an egg. It's at this point we were given another poll, and the result of this poll was investigate the smell. Of course, the next panel does show us that Bunzo is following the path we set him, saying, "Just a quick peek, I could come back later." I feel like this line was an indication that Mob Games actually expected the vote to go differently. I think we were going to go to the game station by default, or it could just be some dialogue filler, but Bunzo mentions that it's really dark in the next panel, and Bunzo spots an egg above him. The egg looks like it's resting in a nest on the catwalk, but Bunzo isn't in the game station, so this is unexpected. One thing I noticed is that in this area, it looks like there are a lot of hoarding has taken place, as all around there are just piles of boxes and collectibles and debris. Now we know Mommy Longlegs isn't here because the lack of webs and toys hanging around, so it's still plausible that perhaps Experiment 1006 could have stopped by, but I keep thinking about the smell. The area, while looking cluttered, doesn't give off the sense of something being responsible for a smell that could reach Bunzo from outside the hallway. But I think something more interesting is happening here. I think that we're being introduced to a new creature in Playtime Co., and I think this creature will have something to do with Chapter 3. But the hard part now is discovering what creature it could be. With that being said, the next poll then asks us how Bunzo should get the egg down, to which the community of course selected the grab pack. This is where the next panel comes in. Bunzo uses the grab pack, saying this grab pack should do the trick, and thus uses it to grab the egg and pull it down. While doing so, he didn't take into consideration how fragile the egg was, and, well, broke the shell. With the shell smashed and the yolk dispersing, covering this small little growing creature inside. Of course, from what we can see, it's most likely to be a chicken, and the fact that it's an egg and Easter fits the bill. The creature would roughly be about 12 to 15 days old, considering the development cycle for a normal chicken egg. So the question has to be asked, who is looking after that egg, or what is looking after that egg? Well, what we know so far is the following. The egg is high up and there is no visible connection to get to the catwalk from this point, or any in the area. So it has to be something tall or something that can fly, and well, of course, that rules out any chicken. The area is covered in collective material, perhaps stuff that can be used as a nest. The creature must have been able to be light enough to sit on the egg to keep it warm, but actually you could argue that this is not needed because the light that's above the egg in the comic strip could have been keeping it warm too. But again, of course, until we get more detail about that, we won't know. But this might just be enough for when the creature needs to leave and find food or objects to help with the nesting. So what is it? What's going on? Well, I think this whole Bunzo adventure is basically hinting at a potential enemy for Chapter 3. And I believe and I theorize that it's going to be a bird. And what type of bird? Well, that's where I'm falling short, because the thing that throws me off is the shape of the head of the embryo or the creature inside the egg. And of course there are arguments to be made that it is a chicken, but there are also counterpoints to that too. But as it stands, I don't think it is a chicken, but it could be another bird creature. This could be any type of bird, but at the moment, if I had to take a good guess, a good theory, I would say we're expecting a vulture-like creature. Now, of course, this vulture would have to be covered up in the Playtime Co. style, so it has to appeal to the children, so it will be something catchy like Victor the Vulture or something like that. And of course, we know from real life that we have different examples of like bird characters, for instance, something like Roadrunner, Woody the Woodpecker, or Tweety. Anyway, I digress. The next comic strip, we see Bunzo in hysterics looking at the bird in his hand saying, "Don't worry, little birdie, I'll help you." He then steps on a closed up hole, and this hole goes one way down. It doesn't lead to any type of room or area in Playtime Co. Just a small, dark, empty room. We see Bunzo opening his eyes after the fall, looking hopelessly for anyone to help him. Again, this is where Twitter come in, and they were offered a choice for what to do next. And of course, Twitter chose to call for help. Bunzo screams, "Help me," as loud as he can, and only for no one to hear it, as it's shown to echo all the way up to the surface for no one to listen. And thus, Bunzo is left alone. We are shown various images showing us how long Bunzo was stuck down there for. From 1 hour to 12 hours to 1 day, and then 3, and then 8, and then 15. The last image counting the days gone seems to be incomplete, as this image looks like it had been written but not finished. From what I can see, we could assume that it was a 3. Now, this could suggest that from the following pattern, it would have been about 30 days. Now, that's interesting on its own because it gives us a timeline of how long these human toy hybrids can last without eating or drinking. Of course, if Bunzo had some water, he'd be able to extend his survival time up to actually about 30 days. Because while humans can survive some time without eating food, we cannot survive without water. Unless you're created in Playtime code, that's where they can change a few strands of DNA. And the way the comic comes to the close is we get the last image, which is titled The End. And this is where the really interesting stuff comes from. So, I'll start with the claws on the walls beside Bunzo. These claw marks are looking awfully similar to that of Experiment 1006, and the same claw marks that we see with Kissy Missy. But what if I told you that Experiment 1006 isn't the only candidate here? What if I told you that it was the bird that we've been hinted at the whole time? Earlier I mentioned that I believe if we were going to guess the bird mascot, it would have had to have been based around a vulture, and well, this is further proof because the amount of marks on the wall match that of the vulture's feet. And well, vultures have very sharp claws. And of course, if you have a vulture and then mix it in with Playtime Co., you get nearly probably the worst kind of vulture. Very strong, very dangerous, and very agitated. This also explains how Bunzo is in the condition he is in the render. He has his eyes missing, which is pretty common for vultures to target first, as of course the eyes are a weak soft tissue area. Not to mention, this also explains why rather than seeing a big bite mark on Bunzo's head, we see pecking. Not so much teeth marks, but more a pulling apart of areas. This could also explain why the blood marks are more splattered and spotty rather than one big pool. Vultures, when eating, will often dive deeper into the carcass rather than ripping new parts of tissue. And who knows what kind of human parts are behind Bunzo's stuffing. One other interesting thing is the secret picture on the floor. So far as of writing this video, I've yet to see anyone point it out or even discuss what the picture is. And it does mean something. As you can see in my edited version of the picture, we can see Bunzo looking in the style of the comics. But in the image, we don't see any of the damage that's done to Bunzo that we saw in the ending. So I think that leaves the fact that this would have been one of the last comic strips that was took of Bunzo prior to the end image. What's interesting about this though is that there's a hidden message. Could this be another hint at an upcoming ARG? Or could it be a hint of another employee? Now, I did have that train of thought and compared it with the nameplate that was missing in Chapter 2, next to, of course, Elliot Ludwig, Ritterman, and things like that. And while in the message in the image, there are too many characters to be any name tag, so it must be something else. And I believe that this is in fact a message. There are 16 characters in total, and of course the first character we know is E or F, and I'm pretty sure I'm leaning more towards E. Of course, feel free to correct me on that if you think it's an F or any other letter, but the shape of the letter looks more towards the E. And of course, after that we have 15 more letters to work out. But the thing is, being followed by a full stop makes me wonder if it's again a secret message, pretty much like we saw in the Kissy Missy VHS. And then I also had the thought that perhaps this is actually the name of the new character that's coming. Of course with no spaces or whatnot, or it might just be a very long name, although I highly doubt that. But yeah, it's very up in the air as of at the moment, trying to figure out exactly what that message could relate to. Again, if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. Of course, there is one more thing I'd like to sort of discuss and theorize about, and that's who's getting the shots. Of course, the comic doesn't need explaining where the shots come from because, you know, it's drawn. An artist has to do that. But the render looks like it's a photograph or some type of video evidence of what happened to Bunzo. I think this again links back with Experiment 1006, as he has the ability to hack these feeds and, you know, show these feeds to other employees like we see in Project Playtime and things like that. So it's not far-fetched to think that perhaps Experiment 1006 is the one leaking this footage or this screenshot. We've just had a great example of all this with the Kissy Missy VHS tape. But anyway, I need to wrap up this video because I need to work on another Poppy Playtime theory video. But of course, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you like the channel, make sure to hit subscribe and like the video. Do all the YouTuber stuff. We're trying to hit 100k this year, so hopefully that will go well. I want to hear what you think about this theory as well, and also all the little theories inside this video. And I also want to hear your theories, your ideas of what you think this could be leaning towards. I think the comics were actually a very cool way to approach giving us more information and tying us a little bit more over to Chapter 3 again. So again, Mob Games, well done. Really good, loved it. But with that being said, everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. Have an absolutely lovely morning, day or night, wherever you are in this world. Stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next theory video.